Right, so we did the aperture last time in the center, and we've got another one to do. So if we look back at the mesh, it's this aperture here. So obviously we want that to look exactly the same as this one. So we need to use the curves and the parameters from the original one there. So if I go back into my layers, I've got curves 2D and curves, which I think were the ones that we were using. So looking at that from the front, we've got that curve there. Okay, so that's the curve from the front. We want that one. And then from the top, we've got various curves. I think that was the 2D curve that we were using, and I was experimenting with some other shapes in here to try and minimize the sort of drop down that was happening across these surfaces, because we've got these surfaces here where there's a bit of a step down there, which isn't ideal, but it's unfortunately it's what we're going to live with. Otherwise it's a question of rebuilding all of this lot so that we'd move that line up to there, which I didn't want to do if we can help it. So it's a bit of a cheat, but it's what we're going to go with. And so I'm going to just get rid of those curves there, because I don't think I need those. Let's just check that in the top view. Yeah, so that's one of those is the projected curve in that area, but in the other ones aren't. So I just want them all to be the same. And in fact, we don't use all of that. So I'm just going to project that onto these surfaces here to give us that curve, and then I can project the other curve from the front view there. So let me just save this with today's date. So let's go and project those onto that curve onto there. So those are the surfaces that I want. So if I go into project, I'm going to use curves Z and go and pick that curve there. And let's have a look. It says match original, and I think we've got degree 6, so a high enough degree that we get maximum 0 here. Now this is I think we had this problem last time where we were projecting onto that surface and it doesn't seem to like it, and the usual thing is because of the length of this curve versus the size of that surface. So if I just do a Control C, Control V and copy and paste that down there just so I can see where it is. If we go into project, I think if I do put history on here, so I'm going to pick that surface there, and then this obviously will give us the same result, in other words nothing. So there's nothing appearing there. If I then do an extend on that just to shorten it, I'm wondering whether I've shortened it far too much, so let me just go and pick that. Of course I've got history on my, so that's why that's doing that. So let's go and do that, and we'll just isolate that, and I'll take the history off. So on that curve there, I want to delete the history, in other words the symmetry, and although I've made it very short, extend will still accurately extend it outwards. I thought we might be lucky and actually get the history of the project to work on there, but I don't think that's going to actually. It was worth a try. It was something that I'm not sure, because it hasn't actually created a curve in the first place. I wasn't sure whether it would actually work if I had history on, and it doesn't look like it has. But you can see by shortening that curve, it has actually allowed us to do that. Just out of curiosity, if I try and extend that, I don't think it's going to change anything. No. So the solution to that projection problem is either to do that, or the other way is you could put an MS draft surface down there, but this will work absolutely fine, as you can see. So we've now got those curves in there, and when we come to build these surfaces here, I don't necessarily want to create an MS draft of all of these different curves, and it would be better to do an MS draft which approximates that shape. So maybe I'll put in a curve and just manually approximate it, or I could extend this curve and see what we get. If it's a long way out, then we probably wouldn't want to use that, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. And then the other one, so let me just, this is called whip 1, yeah, so I've got some surfaces in there actually. I don't really want those surfaces in there. I want to put those surfaces onto our body layer there, just to try and keep things reasonably in order. I can actually get rid of that curve there, don't need that one. Now we need to copy this curve here across to here so that we get that same shape. Unfortunately, I haven't got the curve that went all the way across there, because that would have been good. I don't know whether, if I try and extend that, because it says it was a circle originally, so it says circle segment on there. It should, in theory, because we only just trimmed that, it should, in theory, give us exactly the same shape going across here, which it seems to be doing. So if I do that, and then we can, we really want to put symmetry on that, and hopefully, and see which side it keeps. So when I put symmetry on, now that's changed it. If I flip it to the other side, that doesn't work either. No, unfortunately, it's not keeping either of those. So I've done a Control Z to get back to where I wanted to get to. And it'll be because there's a slightly different lengths. So I'm just wondering if I just isolate that, and well, I know I only saved this 2 minutes ago, but I'm going to save this again because I anticipate this might go horribly wrong. Always worth doing just in case. And then we'll put in a curve here. I'm going to put in a curve from there across to there, and then we can trim this back to that same curve. Let's put this on our whip layer here, which I've coloured green because it's mainly curves at the minute. And then we'll do a trim of that curve to there. So now, if I go into symmetry, still changes it slightly, which is a bit weird. Let me go into there. The reason I want to put symmetry on there is just to make sure that that is a symmetric shape, of course. So I've made a copy of that. So I'm just going to go and use that one and then say symmetry, which is slightly different. So flip master side, let's try that one. Oh, okay. It's either up or down. It doesn't want to go in the middle, which makes me... I'm sure it is symmetric, and I suppose it doesn't really matter, to be honest, because we're going to put it over there anyway. We're going to make a copy of that, but it's a little bit strange that that's not actually holding the center point, but never mind. So let's go back here, and then we can move that curve. Now I suppose what we should do is we should extend this curve out to the center, or I mean, what would be safer with that curve would be to project it onto that surface, but I'm going to just go with this. And then we'll trim this out, that curve out to that edge there, which will be that edge of the fillet. So we've got that. And then it means we can then put the pivot point on that point, because what I want to do is move this across here. So I'm going to do Control C, Control V, and then move it along this curve here. Except that I didn't do that right. So let me do that again. I think I've moved the pivot again rather than... So let me go and pick that curve again. So I've got a copy of it. That one's got the pivot point in the right place. And then I want to move it out that way. So I'm going to snap that to there so that we can get that in the same relationship. Now you notice it's slightly different to the mesh, but that's what we want, because actually our curves are slightly different to the mesh. Because if you remember, this curve is generated by projecting down onto our surface. Again, slightly different from the mesh. And so, but the important thing is that the two apertures look consistent with each other. So we can center it on where we see that mesh is slightly different there, it's slightly different there, but they are consistent. So we get a consistent sort of shape to what we've got on this center area. So that's very important, more important than slavishly following the mesh everywhere. You know, if our surfaces were absolutely bang on that mesh, then we would be able to follow all the details, but we now need to be using our artistic judgment, I suppose, to make sure that this is similar to this surface rather than to the mesh itself. This is another one where we're going to be projecting it over multiple surfaces again, because if I thought of this earlier on and moved that line up here, we wouldn't have all of this. We just have a much simpler set of surfaces to project onto, but unfortunately we're going across multiple surfaces. Right, so let's pick, I'm just going to pick all of those surfaces. There's some surfaces that won't be projected on, but it's just easier to pick the whole lot rather than trying to unpick the ones that we don't want. So let's project that. It's going to be in the X direction, so I'm matching original here, and we're going to pick that curve there. And this time, because it's a shorter curve, I guess, it's actually successfully actually projected it onto all of those surfaces there, which is good. And we got maximum deviation of 0.0, which doesn't really mean 0.0, it just means 0.0 and lots of zeros until it gets to some numbers, but they're so small that we don't even need to worry about them. So there's that there. No, this is another one where I really don't want to put an MS draft in across all of these curves, because we end up with lots of surfaces in there, and we really just want one, like pretty much like we've got in the center. Just makes it easier, then we'll end up with less fillets, etc., just making it simple. So if we can reapproximate that in some way, then that will be the thing to do. So let me just take the mesh off now, and we'll also delete all of these locators. And what we'll do there, I think, is to take this curve and then just move it into position, manually see if we can get it close to that. I don't know how close we can get it, but we'll have a go, and use that for our MS draft surface. In fact, yeah, we want to trim this back. We don't need all of this either. So let's trim that. So it's got history on it. It doesn't matter. We don't really need these curves. I'm not sure why. I suppose I need to measure between those curves and this one, I guess. That's what I'm thinking, really, in the back of my mind. Actually, I'm going to take history off those. Right, so we've trimmed these back, and what I also want to do then is to trim this back, really, because I don't need all of that either. So I'm going to just isolate that lot and go into the front view, and then we'll just trim that one out there. And I guess what I need is another layer. So let's just create another layer, just call it Whip 2, because I can't be bothered to think of anything imaginative there. And we'll make that red, and then we'll assign that one to that there. And then I'm going to move that in the X direction. So I'm not sure whether this is going to be a good method or not, to be honest. But I'm going to first of all put a pivot on there so I can move it exactly to that end point, and then we'll look at it in left view. So I'm trying to create one curve. You can see that's very, very flat there, actually, so that it stands a chance of being able to do this, but we've got to be careful, because I was just thinking I'll rotate that, but of course rotation is just going to shorten that, so we can't do that. So I need to maybe put the CVs on that one, and then we could use Pmod on that, see what that will do, and then I'll pick up those points there and those ones there and move that in the X direction. So as long as I move it in the X direction, then in front view, so those projected curves are useful because it just is a sanity check that I'm doing something sensible here. And this may not be the best way to do this at all. But in a sense, I want to keep the CVs exactly as they are in the X direction, so it probably does make sense. So I'm going to do individual points now and just move those, not slide them, but move them. That one can go exactly onto there because they're both trimmed back in the front view to that line there. So I'm just moving them in the X direction to try and get close to those green lines. Now, it doesn't matter that it's not exactly, it doesn't need to be 0.001 to that green line. As long as it's close, then when we create an MS draft surface from that, we're going to put a fillet in there anyway. We can extend the MS draft out this way so that it intersects, and it'll be a nice clean solution as opposed to having all these little bits and pieces, which really are not a good idea. So I'm just eyeballing, as you can see, and obviously because there is a little tiny piece of an S through there, we're going to have that. I think I've just made a big mistake, which is that I used because I'm in top view, I've used the left-hand mouse button rather than the middle mouse button, and so I think I've accidentally moved one of those points. I'm not sure which one. Maybe I'll undo that. I think it was that one. I'll just go back a bit. Yeah, I've probably done it on that one as well. So let's go into the front view. Great, that looks okay. So I just need to remember that in top view, of course, when I'm moving them in the X direction, I'm using the left-hand mouse button. Just easy to forget in the heat of the moment. Obviously, it's a clue there. It tells me, it says X there, that's the direction I'm working in. But when you're very, eyeballs are sort of straining, looking at this in detail, you sort of sometimes forget these things, but at least I do. Fortunately, I did realise my mistake. So that looks pretty good. I mean, we could measure the distance between the two, of course, but probably not necessary at all. Well, it's not necessary. Why didn't that actually tell me anything? Let me do that again. Yeah. The curve, segment, and projected. It tells me something. Let's go into the information window because I really can't read that. It's because I've got min on as well as max. I'm only interested in max. Well, 0.066 is more than close enough. It's absolutely fine. So we'll go with that one. Now, because it's been a little while since I did all of this, I can't remember the parameters of this surface, but if I had metadata on, then I should be able to pick those up. So if I pick that one and go into surfaces, MS draft, I'm pretty certain it was in the X direction, but I cannot remember. Yes, is found metadata, load stored options, yes please. And so that tells me it's in the X direction, there's no draft on it, which I thought was the case, but it's great to make sure. So that metadata is absolute godsend, to be honest. So we can put in the surface there. It's even got the length, which was a really odd length by the looks of things, 233. It's just some random length. If I go and look at that, you can see it's got the same thing going on. And so let's put this, well, I'll just change the colour to blue, because we're going to get rid of this curve anyway. It doesn't matter at all, it's just blue. It's very clear that that's the surface. So there's that one there, and the other one that's I can't remember. This one I definitely can't remember because it's at some odd angle. And so if we go and pick that one and MS draft that one, load the metadata, and then I just need to make sure I'm picking the right curve, which of course is not that one, because that's just the individual curve. So I need to actually undo that one. I need to do the same thing with the curve up here. I need to make one curve where there's multiple curves, and so it worked nicely last time, that trick of using the single curve. Of course we haven't, no, we've got this single curve here, so we could do the same trick here. Let's just take that, and I'll take that curve there, and then we just isolate that lot, and then in the top view, so I want a copy of this because I don't want to use the original one, and I'll move that down, and then we'll get rid of that one. So just hide that away. So in the top view, the only bit I want is there, of course, so I'm going to trim that. Oh, wait a minute, trim that to there, that's it. Okay, so we can then do first thing we can do is put pivot at one end, and move it. I mean, we might be able to just stretch this, possibly, but we've got to bear in mind that we want to keep the shape in the plan view. That should work, though. That should work pretty nicely. So if we go into stretch, which is here, and we'll go and move that point. So we can move that point. I'm moving it in X by mistake, but obviously we want to move that up and down in Z, but actually we're going to snap it to that location there, and that's pretty close to those curves, to be honest, without any manual work at all. It does look as though there's a slight difference there, so let's just have a look at that. So I'm just picking all those curves together, and we go to top view. Top view, no difference, which is good, so that stretch worked very nicely. Here is where the difference is, so we won't be able to get incredibly close because there's more of an S in this area than there was in the last, in the lower area, where the S has sort of diminished a lot more. And so you can see what's happening there. We do need to try and follow that as closely as we can, because otherwise, when we look at the intersect between our MS Draft surface and the actual surfaces that we've got, then we might find that that's a bit of a problem. You can see it's quite SE because of all those underlying surfaces. So in this case, I'll put a bit of mouse sensitivity on. I'm just going to move CVs up and down in the Z direction. He says. So I'm not quite in front view either. So this bit, we're not going to capture all of that detail because we can't, because it's SE. So whatever we end up with, we might have to slightly adjust the MS Draft surface actually when we look at that and see what the intersect looks like. Hopefully it'll be reasonable. So let's go with that, and then with that curve there, which is that offset curve. We want this MS Draft surface. Now, so I need to pick up first of all the metadata off that surface. So I'm going to go into there and then go and pick MS Draft. Yes, we want to pick up the metadata, and then we want to pick up that curve there. So if we look at that, well, I'd never have remembered these values, 27.5095, unless I'd written it down somewhere, and then I'd probably have forgotten where I'd written it down. So metadata, absolutely so useful. And so any menu where it says create metadata, I would advise to put it on. I mean, this is excessively long, but that's what we had on the last one, and it gives you the flexibility then. I know that's far too long, but having a longer surface there just gives you the flexibility of being able to change that back surface. So if you needed to change that, it's easy to do if you've got oversized surfaces. But if you've got very short surfaces like 5mm and you wanted it 25mm, you might find it's a problem. Shouldn't be with, they're only degree 1, so they should extend very well. But obviously if it's a higher degree with some curvature on it, then it can be a problem trying to extend it a long way. So it's much better to have these oversized surfaces and then trim them back at a later stage. So I'm now going to save this game. So that's actually been 15 minutes. Right, so we've got that. Let's have a look at, so we can actually get rid of some of these curves, or at least remove them out of the view there. So let me just put them all on that layer and hide that layer. Now let's have a look at the intersect of this surface here. So with this one, if I query edit that, so I've got history on, which is great. If I put double-sided on it, just makes the MS Draft surface go both ways, which is useful. This curve here we can also put onto that layer, just get it out of the way. And we just have a look at that intersect and just check, how crazy or otherwise that intersect looks like, particularly from the front view, because we've done this from a curve from the top, so it's the front view that's going to be the one that might be a bit weird, but that looks absolutely fine. You see it goes up and down a little bit, but from a distance, you're never going to see that at all. Right, so let's go with that. So if I query edit that again, I can just take double-sided off because I don't really need it that long. I mean, there'd be no harm in doing that, but it doesn't seem a good idea. Also, if you ever wanted to change this, it's good to have it the one edge at least on the surfaces, because the most likely change is either you might change the shape of that, but you want to be able to do it directly, or you might be changing the angle of this. So having one edge on there is usually the best idea, even if it's like 0.5 of a mil above the surface. At least get it close to there, because then you can change that shape directly if you needed to. And of course you can never anticipate these things. You don't know what you might need to do in the future. Let's just get rid of that curve. I mean, those curves, you can obviously delete them as well. That'd be the other option. Now, on the fillets, first fillet we want to do is this corner fillet. So it's that one there. Hopefully I've got some metadata on this. It looks like it was a fillet still. So let's go into surface fillet. Unfortunately, it didn't pick up anything. So did I not have metadata on? I did. I've got metadata on there. So for whatever reason, I haven't got metadata on that one, unfortunately. But you can see, it's degree 5. You can see by the first 3 CVs, not surprisingly, that it's G2 continuous. You can just tell that because those are more or less a straight line, because this is a very flat surface that it's going into. Obviously, if it's curved, then these would be slightly curved, but if they're generally flat, then that's a big clue that that's G2 continuous. So we need G2 continuous. Usually I'm putting in caudal fillets, so if I measure from there to there, that will give us a clue again. So let's go into locators rather, and we'll go curve to curve. So we measure from there to there, and that tells me something which I can't read. What have I got set in here? True, yes, minimum, don't want minimum on, don't want modify range on actually. That's better. So I don't think it liked the modify range, or maybe the modify range, with modify range on, I've got that from previous. I thought there was something strange going on. I should have spotted the arrows actually. So there's my arrows there, and so they were right on top of each other, hence I wasn't really getting a proper display. So that says 8 mil. That sounds like a very nice number, which I seem to remember now from last time. If you actually wanted to make absolutely certain that we're using the same parameters for our fillet, then what you could do is untrim these blocks here, and then just put in an 8 mil caudal G2 continuous fillet. Just see if it's exactly the same as this. But there's every chance. The only other variable is the form factor, but usually I put in 1 because it's easy to remember. So on this one here, we're going to do this. So we're going to go into surfaces, and so we want caudal, we want G2 continuous, we want caudal length of 8 mil. So make sure it's on caudal length, and this one's the one that catches me out because it seems to go to 1.5 every so often. So make sure it's 1 or whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be 1. You can make it other values if you want to. And then I'll just put it on default because that's the other thing that always catches me out. So just make sure that the normal's going around the right way. Well, I can see that's not going the right way. So the normals need to be pointing into the centre of the fillet. So there's our fillet. Continuity check. Now, on this end, we want edge to be aligned. So that's end. The other end we don't really care about. Oh, we do really care about. I wasn't looking at this correctly. So it actually goes all the way up here because we've got such a long. Because these MS Draft searches go back so far, it actually does the fillet in one go all the way across there. But I was sort of thinking this would go down here, but because I've made these so large, it actually goes all the way around to the other side. Not a problem. It just means some of these surfaces will just get deleted. So in fact, the bit in the middle is all going to disappear. So the fact that it's not curvature aligned, doesn't matter at all. And in fact, we can have automatic on here, and why not? So let's go with that. Now, if we wanted to just see a bit of what's going on, then it would probably be a good idea to just trim this out a bit so we can actually see a bit more clearly what's happening here. I mean, you don't have to do this, of course. You can just, if we want fillets around there, we can do that. But I think it's a nice thing to do. Certainly, if somebody else is looking at the model, they're not going to understand what the heck's going on there unless they're a CAD modeler themselves. So I'm going to go and trim this with project on, and one of the options in this menu, so one of the options in here versus if you do a project, for example, you haven't got this option. Yeah, so project lets you pick individual curves and then project them, but what trim does, so you could do it and put curves on surface all the way around and trim it, but the advantage of this function is that you've got this thing called chain select. So if I did say project, I've got history on, shouldn't need extend, I can take that off. I've got normal on because these curves are very, very close to the surface, or on, actually, yeah, they're very close to the surface, but not quite on the surface, but that'll do. That's accurate enough for what we're doing. But if we put chain select on, what that means is if I pick one of these edges, it will actually, so if I put the surface first, I should read the messages up there. Pick the surface first, and then if we go and pick one of these edges, you see there's little green dots here appear. It's finding all of the edges which are tangent continuous with the one that I picked, and that's where chain select comes in, rather than picking individual ones and having to do it that way. So I can now go and just trim that out very quickly there. So we've showed that up, and then we do the same thing on here. I think can I pick multiple? No, I can't pick multiple surfaces. I think I was dreaming that one. So that one there. This one is going to trim. If I trim it to that edge, of course we're going to lose that bit, so we need to be careful there. So if we go and do chain select there, it's going all the way around there, and then we can go and we want to keep, well, we want to divide that into two. So if I pick on there and then say, and then that one, and then say divide, we'll get that one as a separate surface, this bit in here. That's it. Same on this one. This one doesn't matter because these are two surfaces, so we've got that one and that one, so we can do that to two operations. So this one here, I don't need chain select on really, but it actually saves me a pick or two, so I'm going to divide that up there. I'll get rid of that in a minute. And then the next one is going to be this one. Definitely don't need chain select on there, so worth taking it off when you don't need it. Oh, hang on a second, I need, because it keeps divide on, I want to just keep on there. And then this one is going to be that one to there. And then this one can be deleted. So I need to just delete that one. So we can now see more clearly what's going on. Obviously there's a back surface to go in there. If I press F8, nothing happens. Well, that's weird. F8 should give us the other side. So am I not sure why that's not working. Anyway, let's come back to that. So F8 should give us the other side. I'm not sure why it's not doing that. Okay, so this one, not important. On here, we can pick up from these fillets, hopefully. Let's see if these have got, these have actually got metadata in or not. Unfortunately not. No, for some reason those have all lost it as well. I think that one I might have even, I think I manually put that in because I made the mistake of putting a round in and then aligning it in G2. I didn't want to do because I wanted to just show how you can actually go from something that's only G1 to something that's G2 going around the corner. So I was trying to demonstrate that one. And so I think that's a made up one, so I'm going to have to make up something that looks very similar to that. So let's just save this. Okay, so this one here, again, we're going to have to analyze this one, unfortunately. So I'm going to, just out of curiosity, I don't suppose for 1 minute this is going to work. Of course, that one was a trim convert. That's why that's got no metadata. Has this one got any? Yes, hooray. That's great. Yeah, because I forgot, I trim converted that one. So in doing that, you're going to lose the metadata because it's a new surface. So it won't actually be associated with the fillet function at all. This one, fortunately, has got that metadata, which is great. And it turns out that that's also 8mm quarter length G2, like the corner one. So that's very good news. So we can use that information. So let's go and pick this lot. So we will end up with multiple fillets here. And what we want to do here, before I start, let's take auto update off, because I'm going to change these, and if I change them, it'll update it. And of course, that's going to cause all sorts of mayhem, or possibly. Just make sure I just pick the surfaces that I want. So let's go into. So whereas before, when we were working on fillets, I was doing individual fillets, so I was doing individual pairs, which often gives you a better result. Here, where we've got one surface into multiple surfaces, usually you can get away with just picking the whole lot in one go. So I seem to have lost the pick again, but right, so pick that lot, check my normals around the right way, and oh, why is that picked? Hang on a minute, what's going on? That, no, it's going up to there. So if I do that, that's all I'm looking at. Is it because I've got history on there? I'm a little bit confused. Okay. Well, let me do it in pairs then. I'm not quite sure what's going on. So the normals are going around the right way there. No, they're not. Yeah, the normals are going around the wrong way, because I was getting thinking of the other bit. That's maybe. Let's see if I can pick those as well then. So that one's going around that way, and oh, okay. Right, let's just pick that again. I'll get this right in a minute, I'm sure. No, it's because of the history up there. It's I'm assuming that, well, these must be all aligned. We've definitely aligned them in the past, so shouldn't have changed. I'm just going to do it this way and see if this will work. This one's the one that we're going to trim convert when we get into this corner, in any case. So maybe we'll certainly take off automatic, because that's likely to cause a problem. And I'll put auto update back on. So we've got default on here. So just go along and do this in pairs. So that one doesn't quite align, but it doesn't matter. It's so small that it shouldn't be a problem. That one has flipped the normal around the wrong way. So there's that there. So then we'll have to then look at these ones here. Sometimes when you've got these situations where you've got these lines coming up here and then the fillet goes off at an angle, then alignment can be a problem, and we could just extend these lines and then trim convert these back, and so that we end up with this edge flowing into there. It's not always necessary, but we'll have to find out by trying it. Obviously, it's a bit quicker if we don't have to bother doing that. So these inevitably won't be aligned, and so we want to make sure that they are. So I'll go into align G2. It's not a partial. It's position influence of 1 because it's edge to edge, and obviously we've got history on here. Right, so that's throwing that top edge, but that doesn't matter. We'll sort that out in a minute. So we need a new curve on surface there, so let's get rid of the curve on surface, and then we'll do an alignment with project on, and we'll do it normal, which should do the trick. So let's take history off here, because this is just keeps on asking me, do I want to delete history, and I have to keep on saying yes. Great, so that's done that. Strictly speaking, that should be 0. Keep the CVs where they were, but it's not made any difference anyway. So we've got the same sort of situation here. I'm anticipating that we'll have to delete that, so I might as well delete that anyway straight away. And then we'll do ends here. So we'll align that one into there. Now it's broken that one as well. Position influence should be 1, shouldn't it? Strictly speaking. I know it still says it's curvature aligned, but let's just follow the rules closely. That's quite a small gap there, so I'm hoping maybe we'll have to increase the degree. Let's see what happens, and we'll see whether that aligns into there. So it's broken it that way. Let's see if we can increase the degree a little bit up to 7. It's not quite aligned. Fairly small, 0.26. We might be able to just tweak that normally. So let's put in lots of mouse sensitivity, say 500, and we'll just, so I'm moving normal to the surface there. That's actually looking promising. Let's put an extra 0 on the end. Or it goes down and then almost disappears, but not quite. Okay, let's try that one, which affects tangency as well, of course. Let's try this edge one. This might be one where we have to do what I said we'd have to do, which is make those edges flow. Although they come off at such an angle, that could be a little bit tricky. I mean, the other way, of course, is just to ignore it and just say, wow, it's so small, I'm not going to bother. That one disappeared nicely, that's good. That's helpful. This one just doesn't want to know. So I'm just trying some random points here. See if we can even the position one. That one just doesn't really want to know. What I'm going to do is align that back in tangency at least, so that because I have moved the edge a bit, so I'm just going to go back to tangency there, making sure that I've got edge on and 1 on there. And then we can, it won't be curvature aligned, that's for sure, still. So it's actually slightly worse, it doesn't matter. I'm just wondering if I was to, first of all, move that so that's the 3rd point along, and just bring that down a little bit, as much as we can, and then see whether we can just slide that along, slide these CVs along that way, because that can also sometimes work. Oh, it's so close, but it's just okay. Well, the other thing I can do is I could divide this up. I'm thinking this one's a large one here, so let's just divide this up. So we'll detach that one. Just give ourselves more chance. So do something. We'll make that quite small. Don't want to make it too small because that's when you may end up with wobbles and things. So we'll get rid of the locators around there because they'll get confused, as we know. And we'll put some fresh ones in. So G2 on these edges here. Oh, that one, and that one. So we just need to get that one sorted. So I'm going to align the left to the right. If that works, it'd be great, but oh, excellent. Right, that worked nicely, so beautiful. Right, so let's have a look. What else have we got? That's it. So those are all aligned. Definitely a point at which we should save this. Now across the top we had a we had some fillets there which were fillets, and then I made it up. So I'm going to have to try and copy that across. So let's see how we can do that. So first of all, I'm going to analyse it in terms of the caudal distance, which it may not be 8 actually. It's 5.186, so I really did make that one up. Maybe I'll probably put it in with a radius value. That's what I did. What we could do actually is do what I suggested before, which is if we take that area there, and then we'll untrim everything, and then I'm going to see if I can create the same look to that fillet, because it's not a fillet and it won't have any metadata, because it's it might have metadata, but it'll be out of date anyway. Yeah, no, it's got no metadata. So it's some weird value. So it's going to be, I think I might have put it in as a radius, and I initially put it in as G1 circular, and it was probably 3 mil or something, maybe. This would be a miracle if it actually is. I don't want any more curves on the surface. I'm just doing this to see what we get. So let's see what we get. There we go. Fantastic. That was a good guess, wasn't it? Well, I thought 3 mil was probably the lowest fillet size I wanted. Now, the only difference being that this has got degree 5 and that other one's got degree 3. But we can go into explicit control, of course, and change that. So let's make that degree 5 going along that way. And this is again just for comparison, so it's pretty much that. So that's what we can go with. So we'll take those settings, and then we can apply it to this other area. So it was radius circular 3 with degree 3 going across. Radius circular 3. Right. Okay, so we don't want that, so let's undo that, and then we want to trim these back out. Hopefully I'll remember those. Shouldn't be that difficult to remember, should it really? But you never know. Right, so between this lot, so it's going to be these surfaces here. So let's just take that. I'm going to take the history off because it seemed he was getting a bit confused, or maybe it was me, but I'm not sure what was going on there. So I should be able to just do this between those two there, and we'll put this time we will want curves on surface, and we want to see the continuity. Brilliant. So that's got all those in there. We can also put in a check on the between the fillets themselves. So if I put continuity checker there, and because they're only tangent this way, there's no reason to want curvature going along that way. And yeah, it's not completely necessary. I suppose you could argue that that's curvature aligned, so this should be curvature aligned, but I'm really not going to bother. So let's go with that, and we've got those ones there. So now we've got these corners. Let's start off with that one, because that one we can take that one here, Control C, Control V, and move it across this way, and just we can just move it across to here. It's not going to line up exactly, of course, but if we just did that, we get an idea. We can make sure that our new corner, what I will do there is, because we could, I suppose we could use it, but I think I'm just going to, and then align it on all sides once we've got these edges sorted. But I think I'm just going to put it in as a template. It's almost as much hassle trying to use what's there as actually just creating a fresh one, I think. So let's go into and pick this lot, and we'll just isolate that lot. So we've got that. Oh, let's do that. And then we can get rid of these curves on surface, because I need to extend these, and then we need to trim and convert them anyway. So I'm going to do that. The taking that corner across is very useful, because it shows us where this blend curve should be, etc., etc. I mean, but I suppose we could do that. So if I make that not a template anymore, I can then copy that as a curve. So let me take interactive off. I've set that to something else at the minute, so I want no rebuild on there. Don't want any of these things on, not that it matters really. So I just want that straightforward, no rebuilds, no ticks on at all, and then we'll template that again. Now we need to put in this edge. Oh, this is another one actually where we can actually use that sensibly. So I'll put in a curve off that edge, and then we'll just template that again. I mean, I might use that corner, but you can see the angles are different as well. So by the time you've just tried to align it all, you might as well just put it in from scratch, to be honest. This one here has got too high a degree. I don't want it degree 7, I want it degree 5. The reason being is that then I can compare it with the holes on this fillet going up here. So let's go into align here, and I want edge, I want history on. So as we've done quite a few times before, I'm just going to align that there. Make sure that, because that's moving from one position to another, there's every chance that won't be quite on the end. It is, I can see the one arrow, but just make sure by inspecting it or moving that across. And then the same thing on this end. Just make sure it's absolutely on that end. Just grab hold of that arrow if in doubt. If you can't see it because the arrow is so small, just make sure you pull it that way. Now let's get rid of, so this one here, I was going to take the CVs off things, but I'm not going to bother. I think we can see them see them okay. So here's another case where that edge and that hole don't quite line up. They're slightly off each other, so these ones need to be similar. They look as though they are. That one's maybe a bit close that way, and then this one looks as though these should be exactly lined up with the holes because the edges are lined up with the holes, so these ought to lie on there, and then we can just check what the distance is there. That's the wrong function. I want curve to surface, of course. That one there. Just sanity check it. 0.016. Usually you can get closer than that. So let's just move these points a little bit. I'm actually going the wrong way there. 0.01. 0.005. That'll do. Great. So we're going to trim convert this back to this curve, which we've done many times before. So we're going to go into trim convert and project normal or view. Either one should give us pretty much the same result. That one there to there. Now I've got, I know it's picking up multiple curves there automatically. So I'll do that with that. And I think at that point I'm going to save it again. And then we'll, this surface here, let's just go, we might as well just go straight into align, to be honest, and we'll go G2. So whether it's aligned or not, doesn't matter. I'll take history off, don't really want that on. I'm going to align that into that edge. Now it takes it all the way to the end, so we want partial on, and we want to then put edge on, so that it guarantees that it's actually aligning to that. So it's picking up on the curve on surface there and saying it's aligning to there. We want position inputs to be 0, so the CVs don't move left to right, sort of thing. And then again, that one should be edge. This one doesn't matter; it would be skew anyway. So that should flow nicely through there. So I'm going to get rid of that curve. We don't need that now. And then we want our planes in. When we've done this before, we've put history on the planes. It doesn't really matter. Actually, before we do the planes, we've got to make sure this curve is aligned to these edges, which I haven't done yet. So let's align that. G2. Partial doesn't matter because it's just a curve. And into there. Now it's not into a corner or anything. If you feel like that needs adjusting, we can do that. It's sort of snapping to that location. If that's happening, I didn't put history on, did I? So let me just go into there again. I will put history on there just in case we want to adjust it afterwards. into there. If you find that that's snapping, it doesn't want to move it, and I think it's is it picking up on the curve on surface? I thought I got rid of them. Yeah, what's that picking up on? Probably itself. So maybe that's what it's doing. So if I query edit that now, if you find it snaps into that place, you might be able to do that, come out of there, and then hopefully, yeah. So now it's snapping to its own itself. So now I can freely move it around without it snapping to where I don't want it to move to. So I was just trying to align that with the template, but it really doesn't matter too much. It's close enough. Nobody's ever going to know the difference. And then this one also aligns this way. Again, it's snapping to itself. So if I did want to move that, I can do that, and then go back into query edit, and then move it so that now it's free to move around more closely. So I'm just again lining it up with a template that's not essential, but it's that perfectly aligned. And then I want my planes in there. I mean, it's probably good to get into the habit of setting up the planes with history, so I shall do that again. So we'll do it with 3 points. So we snap to that point, and then we use Control and Alt to go along to the end. If you don't want history, just snap to the end, but if you put it on there, then you've got it if you ever wanted to do it. In this case, we don't need to do it. We know where we want this curve to be. Yeah, it's a good practice to do it by sliding it along the curves, and then you won't have to think about it in the future. So these ones here we're going to trim convert, and we're going to trim convert them back to that plane. So whereas before we actually created an intersect and then did the trim convert, we can just go straight into intersect in the trim convert function here. So I can trim convert that to that plane and pick it. Sometimes you find that because there's multiple surfaces there, it's not actually finding. This is the one disadvantage I find of trim convert with a 3D trimming, is that sometimes it won't let you. It's difficult to pick the thing that you want to trim if it's behind other surfaces. But if you go close to an edge, it usually does it fine. So why is that not going? There we go. I think I just undid it by mistake. And then we'll do the same thing on here. So we're going to do that to the intersect there. That's one where because this trimming, when you say intersect, it doesn't actually know whether you're picking the surface that you want to trim, or whether you're trying to pick something else which intersects it. If you see what I mean. So in an area like this, where it was actually finding this top surface and then finding an intersect, which we definitely don't want. So because it's behind the geometry, if you swing the geometry around that way, then you can clearly see that we've got the bit that we want to trim. So, but if all else fails, then do the intersect outside. Do it with this function down here. Right. So we've got that hole there. We want to make sure that things are aligned. The mistake I made last time, if you remember, is I'm so used to having G2 fillets at most places that sometimes if you've got just G1, and I tend to forget that it's G1, and I align it in G2 before I realise my mistake. So this one here, let's just check. We've got curves and surface there, and we've got the one down the bottom, but not that one at the top. So we can align those. It may be that we've got tangency continuity on that lower one. We have, that's good. And that one we haven't got anything, and that one we haven't got anything because we've got no curve on surface. So let's go and align those. So I just need to be wary of the fact that that left-hand one is just G1, and it's project, and it's normal to this surface here. Like so, position influence of 0 on, which is what we want, and then we can do this one. Now this one, of course, I've got to remember that's G1. Right, so there's some stuff in the corner we could get rid of at some point, but I'll just leave it there for the time being. And then we want to put in a new surface, so we're going to use square. So surface is square in this corner, and we'll start off with the curve on this edge, and then the other edges. We've got to think about this as we did before. First edge, so if I go this way round, this is the first edge is G0 position. That's going to be curvature, because this is curvature. This way is going to be only tangency. We can't put curvature on this end, so we can't put it on this end either. It'll sort of seep into the result anyway by default. But at this end, we can't have an edge with curvature when we've got it trying to align to just tangency. So that third edge, which is this lower one here, can only have tangency on. This one can have curvature on because that's curvature and that's curvature. So let's go with that, and then we'll open up that menu, and we want continuity options, collinear options. Then we can open it up even further. First edge doesn't actually matter whether you leave that on or off, and then the other edges need to be collinear. Usually this is the starting point anyway, would be 0.5, 0.5. I don't use those very often. It's just a way of possibly getting a slightly better result, but I don't worry too much about that. And so that's interesting, what's going on here. I've got tangent angle on by mistake, I've put that in. So I want G1 tangent there. Sorry, I want G2. I think hang on a minute, G2. Well, let me pick it. That's very strange. Why won't that let me pick that? That is really peculiar. Because normally that would be absolutely fine. Oh, it's let me do it now. For some reason, this must be my picking then. It was at fault. So yeah, these values in here, you can play around with them. We've also got degree, which is higher than I want. So I'm actually going to put in explicit control there and make it 5 by 5, which completely wrecks everything. But it's in this case, it's obviously the curvature's out on these ends. But the reason for doing that is that when I come and tidy these CVs up, I don't really want 7 holes to deal with. I just want the smallest number, which is 5 really. So let's go for that. These values here, you can play around with those and just see if that helps in any way. You can see it sort of does, but not enough that you could say that's a good solution at all. So I'm going to go with that. Let me go down there. We don't want history on because I'm going to change this now anyway. And then we can try and align these ends if we can get anywhere close to curvature. That will be a bonus. But we're going to change all the CVs anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So that's actually pretty close. Position wise, it's off there now. This one probably not going to be a great result. And then into this lower edge, this is absolutely, we must have tangency into that lower edge. That's the most important thing. So I've got history on in that function again. I need to get rid of that. That should have been on 1. So let me do that again. Let's go around again. I'm just going to do tangency. It'll be close enough. It doesn't have to be 100% at this point because I'm going to change these CVs. And it's pulled it off in position there, but it doesn't matter. That's just a curve. So when we align that, that'll all get sorted out anyway. So the really important thing is that that's tangency aligned there. So now we're going to go and put some planes on these holes here, so 3 points. So just going to snap them to the nearest CV. And as I've said before, I start off in the middle because I usually find that's better, and then just drag that point to wherever I want it to be. And then if we go into the left, otherwise it sometimes picks up on the surface and not the actual CVs, which is then it's just absolutely make sure that it's picking the CVs and not the surface. Otherwise, you can end up with problems. Well, the planes aren't going to be correct then. And if I put the grid on as well, that's always handy. Put the grid on, it makes sure that I've actually picked the construction plane as well, which is obviously very important. And then, so pick the wrong function. So that one there. So if you've got these, obviously you want to put these on. Normally I'd have it on my marking menus, set CP, etc. And obviously that's far more efficient than what I'm doing, where I'm going backwards and forwards in the palette. But that's just to clarify where these functions are coming from. So surface edit, plane rise hull. So those are all nicely aligned in the planes. I'm not actually sure whether that was very good, to be honest. I think, what's that curve there? That's got degree 7. Again, I should have made that degree 5. Yeah, so I've messed up a little bit there, because really, I think what it was when I dropped the degree of that surface, it's moved the CVs. I really didn't notice that. Obviously, I didn't notice it. Let's just get rid of these planes. I'm going to do this again, because I might be able to some extent get away with that. What curves we've got? Just got one curve there. So you see the CVs here aren't lined up with these ones, and that's they're too close together, etc. So I don't like that. There's a different shape to what we've got on the original. I should have been watching that carefully. So I'm going to use position continuity there with blend and see if we could just get away with picking the next 3. And I know I've set them up on planes. That's pretty close. I mean, it's not entirely on a plane. And that one's the worst one. I think I'm just going to go, because I haven't touched these CVs there. I'm just going to anyway. I'm just going to pick. I thought I had that. Just going to isolate that, and I think I'll press the wrong button. So I'm just going to do those planes again. It doesn't really take that long. But I see that's a point where you can see that's on the surface, not on the CVs. So I just need to delete that one. Because otherwise we haven't got the accuracy. So I think I was just not near enough to a CV, but you can clearly see them snapping when you do it this way, which is what I want, because you definitely don't want any of those points being just on the surface somewhere, because you're not going to be aligning to what you think you're aligning at all when you try and do this. Actually, that one's quite a long way out, so it's not worth just tinkering around with the CVs or a line trying to fix that. It's just not going to work, so you might as well just do it. As you can see, once if I had these, if I was using a shelf or marking menus, this would be even more efficient. But it doesn't actually take that long, even doing it this way. It's just a little bit more moving the mouse around, mouse miles, as they say, or mouse kilometers. So let's do that. Set that one. Left view. That was pretty close. That one. That was not too far off the plane. I don't have to be exactly on the plane, of course. Now we've lost the tangency on these ones. So let me just go and do that. Take blending off. That one there. So this is position influence of 1 on there, and then we're going to do that one into there. So that's all aligned. Position at the top doesn't matter. I'm actually going to get rid of that curve now. We don't need the curve, and it's not really aligning into anything. I'm also going to get rid of that template. Don't need that. I mean, in retrospect, maybe the template might have been a good starting point instead, but on the other hand, it was degree 7x7, I think, or 7x5, so probably not a great idea to use that directly at all. But just it's a great reference. I'll just go back I'll just toggle CP so we're actually back in a normal space. Don't need these. Need these construction planes anymore. So what we've got here, let's take the grid off. So we just need to now make sure that that's aligned. Now I don't know whether I've got cursor surface there. I don't think I have. If I put edit points on, oh, I have got curved surface. Yes, of course I have, yeah. So let's go back into, now when we went into display visible, I've got my usual thing going on here, locators. Yeah, all the locators suddenly appear again. Right, so it's this one here, we just need to make sure that's aligned into the main block. So we're going to align that G1 project normal into there. And we want position influence of 0, 1, so it doesn't move the CVs around. And that's all curvature aligned. Now another thing that's caught me out here, this is the complexity of when you've got one that's G2 and the ones that are G3, it sort of throws you a bit because it's less common to do this. So what I haven't done actually is align that in G2 and that in G2. I mean, you could say that because we've got G1 fillet there, what does it matter? And you're probably right. So I'll keep that on there. It's moved the gap, it's opened up the gap slightly there. And there, it's opened up the gap a little bit more. I'm just trying the skew trick, which did work last week on this. And one thing that sometimes works, because there is a small gap there, I've got history of, so let's go, what you can do, having got to this stage, and this is curvature aligned here, is you can try just aligning that just with the gap that way, and if you're lucky, it might do a good job, and if you're not lucky, it'll do that. So we won't use that. So I'm going to, this edge, remember, it only needs to be tangency, because it's only tangency at this end. So it's broken the curvature there by a very small amount, and so let's go, so edge a line there, let's try skew there. Skew brought it down a little bit, which is good, and then we might be able to just see what happens if we just try and adjust that point. This is a very tense moment because you can see that coming down, and any minute now the tangency on the bottom edge is going to break. Yeah. So let's take it back up again. Let's go up to the next one, which doesn't affect the tangency down there, and see if that brings it down any further. So another tense moment. I'm expecting this to suddenly erupt somewhere else. Like there. So if that does that, you can then go and move that one. Now this top edge is only going to be tangency, so this point doesn't actually affect the tangency on the top edge. So now this is moved back down to there. Let's move back down to here. Oh, hang on a second. Wrong one. That one we were working on. Now it's opening up that one there. I'm just going to keep persevering with this one. So it's got rid of it there, and that's 0.14. This might be another place where you could use slides. So it's getting close. There we go. But sliding those in and out could also, would also have an effect there. So it's just this top edge that we now want to align in projection into there. And of course it breaks things again, doesn't it? Always, always. But we did have, if you remember on the other one, we did have degree 7 going around the corner. And maybe that was why we had degree 7. Yes, so that works perfectly now. So we just need to save this before anything else breaks. And we'll just save that there. So I haven't done this corner yet, so I'm going to leave that for the next time. And we'll just, all we're going to do, hopefully, with this is trim this back so we can see what we've got. Now that one didn't trim, and that's probably because that doesn't. Okay. So of course, yes. So there's an area there that I've obviously forgotten. You can see by the pink dots and the arrows, it's saying there's something missing here. So let me go into trim convert, trim surface, project normal. So we're going to do that one there, and then trim that, which is now done. And then we should be able to trim these. That one, obviously this one can't be trimmed at the minute because it's not finished. That one should be trimmed. Okay, so let's go and delete all of our locators here, and then we'll just have a look at that. There's some planes we can get rid of, but hopefully, if we've done a good job, then we've got the same parameters on this as we have on here. So the look, apart from we haven't got the offset surface in there yet, but the look of it will be similar, and which is obviously very, very important that we get that.